Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter. Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter, and welcome to Goldilocks Global Banking News. I am your host, proudly your host of the #1 source to learn the process of the RV. Also, for the #1 source to be able to help members establish relationships with the actual bankers at the banks who will be responsible for exchanging their currency and also managing and build their wealth. Folks, today Goldilocks is sharing some very important information about gold. I'm sure many of you all know that we must have gold backing our currencies in the new quantum financial system in order for us to exchange our currencies. Yes, to exchange the dinar, to exchange the dong, to exchange any currency that we hold. And you want to exchange that currency into US dollars or to any other currency wherever you are located around the world, we must have gold to back our currencies. Basel III, which is the capital requirements for banks, meaning the amount of money, capital, that banks hold in reserves along with gold, must be in place at a certain level to meet the new regulations and standards for Basel III. So Goldilocks is sharing today this information because there is new developments now regarding Basel III and gold. It surely shows that there is a preparation for a gold standard. This year, gold has already reached its all-time high several times this year. We're seeing cryptocurrency, which will be, of course, implemented into the quantum financial system as well, moving to their all-time highs. Before we get into that, folks, I'm going to share with you in the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room, there are members that are, yes, establishing these relationships with actual bankers. As a matter of fact, funny story. Just yesterday, we had a member who posted into the room that he has his second meeting with the wealth manager coming up. And the wealth manager has even invited him to his shooting ranch. Now, we have wealth managers, actual bankers, meeting with members at their homes, restaurants for lunch, for dinner, dates, grocery store, aisle 7, all over the place. Now we have an actual banker, wealth manager, offering for one of our members to come to their shooting ranch. You talk about establishing relationships with an actual banker? They're inviting you to their shooting ranch? Amazing. We love it. We even have a member that she posted that she's opened her account, began establishing her relationships. I asked her, my Lord, where have you been? She said she was just lurking in the background, watching to see if everything was true and real in our room. And she's like, yep, Freedom Fighter, y'all the real deal. I'm glad I found the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room. This is where Wiley and myself help educate members to establish relationships with the actual bankers who are going to exchange your currency. There's a link at the top of the description. Click it. It's free. You can join. There are other members, many members, that will welcome you with open arms to share the same love and experience that they have had with establishing their relationships with bankers who are going to exchange their currency. And you can come ask them questions. You can come ask for help and do the same thing. Why not you? Let's jump into Basel III and what Goldilocks is sharing about gold. Let's jump into it. Goldilocks is sharing that a few days ago, we talked about Europe becoming Basel III compliant on January the 1st, 2025. In the United States, becoming Basel III compliant on July the 1st, 2025. Let's pause. Folks, Europe is actually the financial hub of the world. All countries' currencies, financial systems, they're all somehow interconnected into Europe. So with Europe on January the 1st becoming Basel III compliant, that's huge because they also are connected to us. They also are connected to Iraq. They also are connected to Vietnam. Now you may say, oh, United States is becoming Basel III compliant on July the 1st, 2025. Do we have to wait? No, I know what questions you have. Just know the large banks in the United States have already become Basel III compliant as of October the 1st. Some actually before then, but the new regulations and laws went into effect as mandatory on October the 1st of this year. The majority of the banks, particularly large banks, they all are Basel III compliant already. Why do you think we've been encouraging you to establish relationships with Tier 1 banks? Tier 1 banks are already Basel III compliant, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. This is why Goldilocks, Wiley, and myself have been encouraging our members to establish these relationships with Tier 1 banks, because those are the large banks that are already Basel III compliant. Why do you think our members are having such success with establishing relationships? Well, there's many reasons. There's not one specific reason. There's no cookie cutter reason. But one in particular is because Goldilocks is sharing the process of the RV. Wiley and myself in the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room is educating people how to establish the relationships to be prepared for their exchange. Goldilocks is continuing that the BRICS nations are generally considered to be Basel III compliant also. BRICS has adopted and implemented the Basel III framework for bank regulations. Well, you all may want to know, why is the BRICS important to be Basel III compliant? What does that got to do with us? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the BRICS nations, many of the countries that we hold currencies for are connected to the BRICS nations. The BRICS nations and their international payment system, which is the interconnecting system for the quantum financial system. Vietnam is connected to the BRICS nations. They do trade with the BRICS nations. Yep, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, so forth and so on. Iraq does trade with these BRICS nations. So you got to understand that everything is connected to everything. Just because you may not hold a currency for a country that's within the BRICS doesn't mean that they're not relevant to the currencies you hold relative to the RV, because the currencies we hold are connected to these other countries in trade. So the BRICS nations, the level of compliance might vary for their Basel III compliance, but they're all getting on board. There are calls for full implementation of Basel III, which is a set of reforms and regulations that are intended to create a sound banking system that supports economic growth. Folks, Basel III is basically an ironclad Fort Knox protective system in the banks so that when we exchange our currencies, or just the matter of fact having money in the banks, that if there is a financial crisis, your money is safe. Without the Basel III compliance, which is capital requirements that the banks must have, gold reserves that the banks must have, is protection. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to ask you a question. I want to see if you can think of the answer. Out of all the currencies you hold, which one do you think, what country do you think is already Basel III compliant? What major currency that you are waiting to revalue do you believe is already Basel III compliant? Yes, Iraq. The Central Bank of Iraq is already Basel III compliant. And there are calls for full implementation of Basel III by the BIS, which is the Bank of International Settlements. It is the central bank of all central banks, called the Bank of International Settlements, from which implements Basel III for the Central Bank of Iraq, Federal Reserve Bank in the United States, and all central banks. The Basel Committee on Banking Supervision members, they unanimously reaffirmed their commitment to implementing Basel III in full. In other words, they reaffirmed their commitment to implement the gold standard. Even the G20 finance ministers and central banks, they have reiterated their commitment to Basel III, the gold standard. Goldilocks is sharing, yes, the United States regulations are expected to start to take effect on July 1st, 2025, with a 3-year phase-in period. But the large banks are already Basel III compliant in the United States. That's very, very important. I have a question for you. Are the redemption centers Basel III compliant? Think about that. Are you able to do research to determine if they are? Are you even able to do research to determine if they exist? Will you exchange your currency at a location that has no capital requirements, no gold and reserves to back your money in the new banking system? What will happen if you take your currency to a location to exchange it and that financial institution has no regulations or laws to protect your money? Have you thought about that? Have you been able to meet face to face with the actual people that are going to exchange your currency? Have you been invited to their homes? Have they been invited to yours? Have you been invited to a shooting ranch of the banker that's going to exchange your currency because he's looking to establish a relationship with you? Do you know the background and experience of the person that's going to exchange your currency? How many certifications they have? Do you know where their children go to school? Do you know how long the place from which you are going to exchange your currency has been in existence? How long has that redemption center been in existence? The gold standard Basel III compliance, ladies and gentlemen, is strict regulations applied globally for all financial institutions. Top tier 1 banks, ladies and gentlemen, are Basel III compliant in the United States. Our members will exchange their currency there. There's certain protection and regulations that are in place. With gold to back our money in the new financial system. Goldilocks wants you to know. This is the Basel III reforms included. It requires these large banks a minimum capital ratios, meaning minimum amount of money they must have on the books. Tier 1 ratio capital is 6% to 7.5% they must have in capital reserves. Tier 1 bank. That qualifies it as a tier 1 bank. A capital conservation buffer of 2.5%. So that's an additional money they must have to protect your money. So the large banks, the tier 1 that are considered tier 1 in the United States, are already Basel III compliant. July 1st next year, the full completion of Basel III will cover the rest of the banks and the financial institutions in the United States. So I want to question you where you are going to exchange. Do they have tier 1 capital requirements designated by the United States government? Designated by the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of all central banks? Do you think in 2018, then President Donald Trump signed the executive order for the quantum financial system to then return to not have protection mechanisms in place for the new banking system? What are the capital requirements for the places you've been told you're going to exchange? What are the mechanisms in place to protect your newfound wealth? Ladies and gentlemen, you're not walking out with millions and millions of dollars or thousands of dollars when you go to exchange. It doesn't work that way. We're moving into a digital economy, and even in the old one, it didn't work that way. So your money will be there in the banking system for a couple of days before it clears, before you're able to move it. But what if there's a crash? No gold to protect your money after you exchange. No capital reserves at the bank or wherever you're thinking you're going to exchange. What if there's no protection, no safety net in place to protect the money you exchange? Folks, our members in the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room, they don't have these concerns. Relationships are being established with the Basel III capital requirement banks, the tier 1 banks, to exchange their currency and to manage their wealth. You are more than welcome to join the tribe. People that were just like you at one time, waiting, hoping, expecting for the RV, but at the same time, not knowing that they can actually reach out and touch someone that is going to exchange their currency and manage their wealth. They are doing it. Why not you? Click the link at the top of the description. You can join for free. We'll welcome you with open arms. It's your choice. Be well, be kind, stay grounded, and stay in unconditional love. Be well. Ciao. Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.